Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here. So, today is going to be a boss ranking of um, Soulsborne games. Well, Soulsborne bosses. Are we going to go through every single one? Maybe not, but really quick, few things. I want you all to put in the comments, y'all to answer three things. Three things. Number one, next year's on the channel will be Code Vein. Code Vein is multiplayer. It does have inherent co-op. Let me know in the comments if y'all just want to see it just me by myself. That's perfectly fine. Number two, do y'all want to see it with Torchic? Even though it would take some convincing to get her to pick it back up because of the infamous Cathedral level, which I feel like most people on here, despite being, I would generally consider most of y'all to be Soulsborne. Uh, Most of y'all probably don't even know of that infamous level, so it takes some convincing. Three, with just myself and Breakfast if he wants to do it. Or do y'all want to see me, Torchic, and Breakfast? Or, just throw out if y'all rather see someone even, completely brand new, let me know that in the comments below as well. Um, Again, do keep in mind, I'm not willing to do it with more than 2 other people. No offense, but just generally speaking, whenever I do multiplayer, especially if y'all have seen my Seamless Co-op Elden Ring series, I do tend to have to carry, but the thing with Code Vein is I can only carry so much in that game. So do keep that in mind. Now, on to the next section. Also, first off, in the well, not in the description, but in the pinned comment, there will be timestamps to each game. So you want to start Demon Souls, going through the Demon Souls game, through Demon Souls bosses, it'll be Demon Souls, Dark Souls 1. I'm not doing Dark Souls 2 because I've not played Dark Souls 2, but I will be doing Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne, Elden Ring. I'm skipping Sekiro as well because I have personally never played Sekiro. So just keep that in mind. Well, not that I never played it, but I got to the early section and I just dropped it. Not necessarily for a particular reason. It didn't feel like it was necessarily my personal cup of tea. That's perfectly fine. I do think Sekiro is a pretty solid game. It's just not, it's just not for me. So there's that. Now, also something to mention, the Masterpiece section will be in order. So in order of best boss to worst boss in Masterpiece. Everything else will be organized within their games. So from amazing all the way down to garbage, it'll be separated. Like the Dark Souls 3 and Dark Souls 1, the bosses will not be mixed together. The only time bosses will be mixed together is for the Masterpiece tier. Keep that in mind. Now the second question for y'all, put in the comments, what do y'all think is my top three, well, my 3 worst takes? I'm going to have some hot takes. Keep in mind, these are not tier listing on difficulty. These are tier listing on my enjoyment. For the most part, it's going to be based on my personal first impressions on these bosses when I fought them. For the upper tiers and some of the more complicated sections, then I will consider repeat playthroughs and some other factors as well. Now, let me know what my 3 worst takes is. Go ahead and answer that Code Vein question in the comments below. Again, other parties being willing participants, and yes, Code Vein will be modded. That just will be a thing. Now, also go check out my AI limit stuff. One of the most garbage demos that I've played in quite some time. Also, if you're from Destiny 2, I do have about 2 more builds left to go. Later on this week, I will be dropping my Void build. After that will be Prismatic. I'm kind of waiting for a certain weapon that's not in a particular rotation yet to pop up, at least for me to get a normal version of it. So there's that. Now, on that note, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with Demon Souls. Now, do keep in mind, if a lot of bosses do not make it into Masterpiece, it's not necessary. I'm not going to put the best boss in Masterpiece just because. It's the best of that particular game. I'm not going to put the worst of the bosses in garbage if the game is considered good. No, these are going to be generally considered. So, generally speaking, do expect a lot of the Demon Souls bosses to be quite low. Again, these are considering the Demon Souls remake and the Dark Souls 1 remaster. That's what I'm considering these games to be. Their areas also will only come into consideration when in the masterpiece or within their own games. Now, Vanguard Demon. Oh well, of course we're gonna start with Demon Souls here. Vanguard Demon, in my opinion, is not great because you can't fight him again. Um, I'll put him in terrible for now. I just don't agree with not being able to fight him again. You do get a special reward if you're able to beat him, but it's not necessarily much of a tutorial boss either. So I don't consider him to be a good tutorial boss either. Oh, also, I'm sorry, I'm slightly under the weather here. Now, Phalanx. We are going to kind of move to these sort of quickly, but, not too fast. Phalanx here. Phalanx is... I'm gonna put Phalanx in meh. It's one of those meh font. I think it's pretty solid for this is an actual tutorial boss. Because it teaches you two things. Number one, items in the area will probably help you with the boss. Fire bombs and the fire... I forgot what it's called in that game, but they're fire greases. They are super useful for this boss, especially the fire bombs. And that teaches you that, and a lot of the bosses going forward are mostly puzzle bosses and not necessarily strict stereotypical bosses. So I do think this is good. Tower Knight is pretty good. I'm gonna put it. Oh, where do I put it? Solid intro. I'm gonna put it in good because the ranged attacks from the outside are quite annoying, but I do actually like fighting this boss. You hit its ankles, it has great visuals to it. Its stomp, its shield stomp down. When it slams the shield down, you're meant to block that. I do really enjoy that, and I do like how it kind of teaches you that blocking isn't just for parrying. You can block certain attacks entirely with that. So, I think Tower Knight is a really solid boss. Armored Spirator is annoying. It's a different kind of annoying than Vanguard. The Armored Spirator, its biggest issue, it's exceedingly monotonous. And it helps if you're ranged. But I did not enjoy this fight. I don't think it's absolute garbage, but I'm gonna say it's better than Vanguard Demon because Armored Spirator you can fight multiple times. Fool's Idol. Fool's Idol. Some of these bosses I've also only fought once. Especially in Demon Souls, as they've only ever beat Demon Souls once. Fool's Idols is one of them. Fool's Idol is interesting. Because you have to find the odd one out, essentially. Because it was pretty cool, but it was kind of a... Okay, get off of my screen. So, Fool's Idol, I don't think it's a great boss. I can't say it's meh, because it's kind of bland. And some of the damage that Fool's Idol can output is quite drastic. It's such a boring fight that I'm going to put it in here. Adjudicator's not great either. I do like the fact that you have to hit a particular spot on it in order to hit the bird. So I think it's good. I think it's kind of meh, but I'm going to put it below the Phalanx because the Phalanx does teach you something. Leechmonger, I barely remember this fight. At least I remember the other ones I'm putting in garbage tier. I don't really remember this fight. Flame Lurker is good, but I'm putting it below Tower Knight. Reason being is some of Flame Lurker's attacks visually don't line up. Even in the remake, some of its attacks kind of make no sense. In terms of its hitbox, seems a little bit bigger than what you would think, and this boss is ridiculously difficult considering the boss that comes after it, and that's Dragon. But that being said, it still has visuals. It's still a pretty solid boss, so I'm putting it in good for now. Dragon God is one of the biggest disappointments. However, it has visuals, so I'm putting it at the very bottom of terrible. Because this boss could have been... This is the most disappointing boss in... I would argue, and honestly, probably one of the most disappointing bosses in all of Soulsborne is Dragon God. It's in the cutscene and everything, too. Now we're going to kind of start getting into the Battle of Mid. Man-Eaters, the music is absolutely phenomenal with this fight, but it's the thing that's carrying this fight. This arena is way too small. They fly around for way too much. I'm I'm not gonna put it necessarily in bad. Do I think it's better than Adjudicator? Absolutely not. The music carries Man-Eaters. Old Hero, I love the ideas. I don't like the boss visually, and the music doesn't do anything either. So it's better than Man-Eaters because it's not egregious. I'm gonna put it at below Adjudicator and meh. Penetrator, really cool design. Not a massive fan of this boss. I'm gonna put him on top of meh. Dirty Colossus, I barely remember this fight too, but just because it's not egregious, I'm gonna put it above Man-Eaters. Old Monk is a PvP fight. Almost all PvP fights are gonna go in garbage. Storm King is interesting. It uses a relic. It has really cool visuals and everything. I will say it's a little slow at times, but considering I'm gonna put it in meh, slightly above Old Hero because it has visuals. I don't think it's as good as Adjudicator because Adjudicator has some really good ideas. Storm King, it does use a relic. It's nowhere close to being the best relic fight in all of Soulsborne, but it is pretty darn solid. Manistray is pretty bad too. I didn't care for the fight. I preferred Armor Spider, but better than Vanguard. Old King a lot. I think it's actually a pretty amazing boss. And this is the actual Old King a lot that you can fight. The only issue is the run back, but I think this is a pretty amazing boss. Not much to say there. True King a lot. I expected so much more. It's going bottom tier. I'm not true garbage because it's not a boss that I despise, but it really could have been so much more. This was a massive disappointment too. But okay, that's it for Demon Souls. Let me know if y'all think any of these are super hot, spicy takes. Let me know in the comments. I think we're not necessarily going to go into super spicy takes until Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3. Well, I think Bloodborne and Elden Ring are going to have some of the spiciest takes. But we're going to move on to Dark Souls 1. Asylum Demon, you do fight it twice. Well, actually, you do fight it 3 times because of Demon Fire Sage. That's not something I'm a huge fan of, so it cannot be in meh. It does have some interesting areas that unlock, so I'm gonna put it in bad. All of the Dark Souls 1 are gonna be in front, so yeah, Demon Souls will always be in the back, on the right side or bottom. Tourist Demon, way too small of an arena, but it does teach you that plunge attacks do exist. Tourist Demon does have some solid music too. I'm just gonna put him in meh. It's inoffensively meh. Bell Gargoyles, I'm not a huge fan of. Music is great, but in my opinion, it also doesn't have the tail feature. It's gonna be in meh. It doesn't have story progression. Tourist Demon can be more frustrating than Bell Gargoyle, so I'm gonna put Tourist Demon here. Moonlit Butterfly is annoying. I'll put Moonlit Butterfly slightly below. My issue with Moonlight Butterfly is the fact that it doesn't come up close for, like, when it comes up to the bridge, that's the only time you can attack it, and it can stay away from the bridge for such a long period of time. And I feel like this is one of those fights where if you're a melee user, it sucks balls and takes way too long. It's not terrible, but it's pretty bad. Capra Demon. Now, I did see a video recently from Illusionary Wall, which, by the way, please check out Illusionary Wall if you're interested in a lot of the behind-the-scenes of Dark Souls 1. It's kind of opened my knowledge about a lot of the hidden stuff in Dark Souls 1. So there's quite a lot. But the Capra Demon, despite his argument, despite seeing it, I do think it is a terrible boss. I do think it's an actual legitimately terrible boss. If this would have taken place later in the game, I think this would have been fine. But it's not necessarily just the boss itself, but the area leading up to it is so abysmally bad, and the game does not really help you understand the ways to avoid this boss. The only way that I could beat this boss consistently is by running straight up the stairs, hoping that I don't get hit frame 1. Gaping Dragon, pretty cool. I'm not necessarily a huge fan of the area, but again, area is going to become more key in between, trying bosses. Really good music. And by the way, fun fact, in the background music of this game, you can hear quietly them saying Dovahkiin, which is dragon. So I love the details for this. I'm gonna put him at a good boss. You can destroy his tail. I do enjoy the boss. Quelaag. Now, in case y'all don't know, titties are glorious, right? In case y'all don't know, titties man right here, right? Glorious. Um, Quelaag has him out and about, right? Absolutely fantastic. But I'm also afraid of spiders. If y'all also new to the channel, Bloodborne. Don't worry. Like, even despite Bloodborne being one of my most favorite games of all time, spiders. I struggled massively to get through to Mikolash. That was a massive problem. Rom at first was also a pretty big problem too because I was so scared of him. Quelaag. Hmm. She's not a bad boss. I think this boss massively struggles from visuals. Because some of the visuals, it's off. I really do think Dark Souls 1 really deserves a proper remake, which would massively help a lot of these bosses. Um, it would massively help so much with this game just to have a visual upgrade, like Demon Souls, because it's a lot easier to see. Quelaag, she has interesting lore, but I don't. Do I think this pushes her up to good? Hmm. I'll put her up to good. I'm not gonna. Ooh, do I put her above Gaping Drive? Both of their air. The problem is both of their areas are pretty bad. Both of their areas are pretty bad, but I'm able to get through this area a little bit more. So I'm gonna put her up in good. But we might move Quelaag down. I'm gonna put her up slightly above Gaping Dragon just strictly because of design. Iron Golem. I'm not completely sure which boss this is. Oh, it's the one at the top of Sense Fortress. Boss is kind of mid. The arena's too small for it to be an enjoyable fight, but I'm putting it at top of mid. Ornstein and Smo. Pretty good boss. I do love the details as well. It does have quite a bit of lore. The area surrounding it is really solid too. Really solid. Is it top tier? Is it a masterpiece? Absolutely not. Is it amazing? No, I do think this is an amazing fight. Especially if you have an NPC to help you out. I think this is the perfect fight with an NPC. I think if you're not using one, I think this fight goes down in my opinion. But I'm going to put it amazing for now. Priscilla. Mid. I don't like bosses that turn invisible without more of a semblance of a way to tell where they're at. This boss I found to be extremely annoying, but I do appreciate the lore that surrounds her and the options you have with her. I do like the way you discover this boss, so that's why she's in meh and not in bad. But as a boss fight itself, it's not great. Gwendolyn, I actually never fought. So we are actually leaving this boss alone. I did try to, but I couldn't figure it out. No. Seethe the Scalers. Annoying as fuck music. I got sick of hearing that boss music. Does he belong? Does he belong in bad? Is the question. Visually pretty solid. Lore-wise, pretty decent as well. That's a decent amount of lore. But the music is so annoying. Getting into this boss is quite a pain in the ass. That is something I'm going to consider for Dark Souls 1 bosses in particular. I'm not going to consider it the run back if they're in Masterpiece, but otherwise, yeah. Ooh, see this. I just wasn't impressed. But strictly because of design, we'll put him bottom of mid for Dark Souls 1. Sif, Masterpiece. Masterpiece boss. Probably, in my opinion, the best boss in Dark Souls 1 belongs to Sif. In my opinion. There is a cutscene change. You have already beaten Artorias of the Abyss. There's just so much detail with Grey Wolf Sif. Also, one of the best pieces of music in all of Soulsborne. Just absolute masterpiece. We have our first masterpiece boss. Now, on the opposite spectrum, Four Kings. Going in garbage. This boss is bad. I don't like the fact you can't see shit. That's why it's just bad. Design-wise, I'm not a huge fan of. The music is abysmal too. I do know how the boss works, and it works similar to how Atrax worked. I don't know if Atrax still works like this, but in case I don't know, in Destiny 2, Atrax, the first actual boss in Deepstone Crypt, its actual health bar is attached to a boss captain. Similarly, the Four Kings, it's attached to a separate fifth king. Now, Ceaseless Discharge, definitely not my nickname in high school. No, did he? Ceaseless Discharge. It does have some pretty good lore. I actually do kind of enjoy this boss slightly. I'm gonna put it in bottom of good. I'd argue that, well, actually, no, I'm gonna put it on top of meh. Top of meh, but it's pretty interesting the amount of things you can do with that boss. Centipede Demon. I hate all the lava. He's an actual terrible boss. Kepper Demon is better than Centipede Demon, in my opinion. Demon Fire Sage, for the exact same reasons I'm putting him in an Asylum Demon, but Asylum Demon has a second variation that is somewhat of an improvement, so yeah, Fire Sage is going down. Beta Chaos. I don't hate it as much as people say, but I am going to put it in terrible, but above Centipede Demon. Beta Chaos can be annoying, but its grace is that it's short. I just realized Stray Demon is their labels in Stray Demon is something entirely different. Okay, Asylum Demon, I'm moving it up to meh because it is a tutorial boss, and it's actually pretty solid for learning plunge attacks, which does come into use with Taurus Demon, but I'm putting it in bottom of meh. Stray Demon I'm going to put it in bad along with Fire Demon Sage. I do prefer over because, again, this is the second time you fight the same boss, but it unlocks the Painted World. It's tied to the Painted World, and it's kind of neat going back to an area started in. Pinwheel, the lore is absolutely amazing. Everything else is not. I don't think this fight is egregious, though, so I'm going to put it in bad for now. I'm going to put it on top of bad. Gravelord Nito, also not a... This is actually a genuinely terrible boss. I don't like how many enemies it spawns. I feel like either spawning enemies or being the boss yourself. Don't do both. Like, goddamn, I don't like bosses that do both. I do think this is a terrible boss. Gravelord, how do I put above Centipede Demon? Yes, because it does have some cool ideas, but it's just not executed very well. I'm gonna put above Beta Chaos, below Capra Demon. Gwyn. Gwyn is a very solid boss, but extremely cheesable, so he's going at bottom of good for now. Doesn't deserve amazing. The biggest issue being, like, there is literally a, like, cheese form his fight is dummy easy. His moveset is pretty bare bones, but the parrying, you just heal, parry, visceral, heal, parry, visceral. And that's kind of it. He does almost nothing else, too. Sanctuary Guardian, such a disappointment. Such a massive disappointment. Such a cool design. Really beautiful arena. By the way, I do know that I believe this boss was originally intended to be a part of Lost Izalith. Well, Lost Izalith was originally going to be a proper swamp. Instead of the fireplace it is in the game. But man, but execution-wise, it's just not great. But I'm gonna put it in meh for. I'm gonna put it in good, bottom of good. Also, the fact that the Taurus Demon is shown way later on as a regular-ass enemy is going to drop it down to top of bad. Same with Asylum Demon. So that's where they're gonna go. So yes, I am gonna punish bosses for being reused multiple times. This will be a problem in Elden Ring as well. Depending on the bosses I use. Artorias, this is also might be a hot take, but I'm not actually putting it in amazing. I'm going to put it at top of good, though. Really solid boss. I do think the DLC is kind of weirdly scaled. I think that's its biggest issue here, and the clunkiness of Dark Souls 1. It feels like Artorias is in a little bit of a weird spot in terms of gameplay. So that's why he's there. Manus, I think is a bad fight. I don't think he fits the area. I'll put him right here. I don't like the boss's moveset. He does feel completely out of place in terms of gameplay. I just really did not enjoy this fight when I was first doing it. Okay, keep in mind, these are all on first impressions. Sif is kind of the exception. I really did love this boss, but I mean, the extra details put into Masterpiece. But yeah, Manus is not great. Not great. I never fought Calamine. I never fought Calamine. So that's it for Dark Souls 1. That is it for Dark Souls 1. Again, we're skipping Dark Souls 2, but here's a good look at the list. Let me know if y'all have any problems with Dark Souls 1. I feel like probably, in my opinion, probably my hottest takes are probably Artorias not being in Masterpiece. And however, I think everything else is pretty agreeable. So again, Masterpiece will be organized. Now, I'm actually going to skip Bloodborne for now and go straight to Dark Souls 3 before we kind of switch genres entirely. Now, Dark Souls 3, Udex Gundyr. I'm assuming this is not meaning that. Oh, okay. Champion Gundyr, regular Udex Gundyr are separated. Okay. Ooh, I'm gonna have some hot takes, and I'm gonna have some hot takes in Dark Souls 3. We do Udex Gundyr, very solid boss fight, very solid boss fight. Especially the tutorial, I'm putting them at good. Do keep in mind these games are not, or these amazing, well, at least good, well, amazing and downward are not organized by. They're organized by game, not by actual proper order. Vor Arboreal Valley, in my opinion, music and visuals carry him. As a boss, though, he is pretty mid, so I'm putting him in here. Curse Roddick Greatwood. I didn't really enjoy this fight. It had some good ideas. I'm putting him above Fort because of what he unlocks, and I do enjoy the ideas. The pustulous boils, the arm that you can hit later on, crash in the ground, which does kill all the NPCs. But I do think it's just a pretty mid fight. And a piece of the environment coming out to attack is pretty solid too, which we don't necessarily see anywhere else. Crystal Sage, I hate this boss. I'm gonna put it in bad. I really do hate this boss. I don't think it's a garbage boss, but in my opinion, this boss is not good unless you can out damage it. Like, you have to do a crap ton of damage. This is a damage check boss, but a really bad one. I hate this boss. It's also, well, it's a regular enemy later on too in Duke's Archive, so it's going down to terrible. Yes, I do dock a whole ass tier. Speaking of actual garbage bosses, Deacons of the Deep. I'm telling you, the early game is abysmal. Deacons of the Deep is really bad. I hate this boss. It has almost nothing going for it except for lore and the fact that you can get NPCs for it. Garbage boss. Abyss Watchers, however, is going in Masterpiece. I am putting it below Sif. Abyss Watchers do have music and everything, but I do feel like the extra Abyss Watchers after that first phase are a little bit. I think they do a little bit too much damage, but I do love the details. Boss fight is extremely good. Definitely one of the highlights of Dark Souls 3. Not just in the early game, but in general as well. So I am putting it in Masterpiece. It could get docked though if I'm feeling like Amazing is looking a little too skinny. Walnir. Now, this is where I think I'm gonna start turning some heads. Alright, but this is probably going to be one of my hottest takes for Dark Souls 3. We'll have a following one, but Wolnir, I actually really do enjoy this boss. Y'all are going to understand well, maybe not. There is a madness, especially when we got to Bloodborne. But Bloodborne is going to be a host of hot takes. But Wolnir, I actually do enjoy. I love the goofiness of him going back into darkness after you beat him. I don't like the skeletons that he spawns. But the intro cutscene is pretty solid. I just enjoy fighting this boss. I actually genuinely do look forward to fighting this boss. So I'm actually putting him as a good fight. No, okay, I'll actually do y'all a solid, and I will put him above Udex. I will put Udex above him. But I do actually think Wilder's a good boss. Now, Pana Sullivan. You might think, oh, masterpiece. Absolutely not. I think Pana Sullivan is really good if you have other people. I only think he's good in NPCs. Oh, sorry, I'm a little bit rough. no diddy. But in my opinion, if to fight this boss solo, I don't like it. I do love the fact that the apparition will still do the same attacks, but at someone else. And I do love that. I think this is one of my favorite fights with NPCs in all of Soulsborne. But I think as a solo thing, I do say, and I'm not a huge fan of the music necessarily, but other than that, this fight is pretty good. I will actually put it in amazing for now. But I think this fight is absolutely amazing with NPCs. Absolutely phenomenal fight with NPCs. This is one of my favorites. With NPCs specifically, but is it my favorites in general? Absolutely not, in no way, shape, or form. Not even close. Aldrich, Saint of the Deep, also a pretty bad fight. This is gonna be our first bad tier in for Dark Souls 3. The rest have been terrible or otherwise. Sorry. But Aldrich is pretty bad, especially if you're ranged. He's a pretty toxic boss. If you stay close, though, this boss fight is completely trivialized. I don't like this boss. What's carrying him absolutely is the arena and the lore. Absolutely carries this boss. Yorm the Giant. I'm going to consider this with Sigurd. Amazing fight. The only reason why it's not a masterpiece is strictly due to Sigurd. If he's not involved, this fight's not necessarily the best. Storm Ruler coming back is a pretty good nod to Demon Souls, because I believe it's never reappeared again. I believe it's only in 2 games. Because I don't believe it's in Dark Souls 1, and Elden Ring has a version of it, but it's not Storm Ruler. And man, just the absolute peak of Sigurd and Yorm, the lore, it's absolutely fantastic. The dialogue after, I look forward to Yorm the Giant. I absolutely do. And to me, it's worth getting through Profane Capital and the dungeon before. Yorm the Giant's absolutely amazing to me. Dance of Boreal Valley. This is in a weird spot. I'm gonna put this in meh. I do like it better than Curse Great Wood and Vort, but it's strange. It's one of the strangest fights that it's just like, its moveset is not necessarily easy to read, and I think from like animations perspective, I do think it's a little bit rough to look at considering how the rest of the bosses move. It's a little bit too strange. It feels a little bit out of place, but I think it's a pretty solid boss. Music is pretty solid. You can access it early though, so I am actually gonna bump it up to good. Not better than Wolnir though. And by the way, these are all in terms of enjoyment. Oh, another really strong lore boss. Oh, Cyros the Consumed King. Oh, Cyrus the Consumed King. Pretty solid boss. I'm going to put him in good. I'm not going to put him above Wolnir. I'm going to put him right below Dancer Boreal Valley. I think that's a good spot for him. Champion Gundyr is super aggressive, but he's just an aggressive version of regular Vort of Boreal Valley, and I actually prefer regular Gundyr, if I'm going to be honest. So I'm actually going to put him below. I'm going to put him above Wolnir. I just don't like him more than base Unix Gundyr. Dragon Slayer armor, I'm not a huge fan of. I don't like him. I'm gonna put him bad. I hated Aldrich more, but I just did not like this fight. I just did not. Lothric and Lorien. I think this is an actual really bad boss too. I think this is a really bad boss. I'm gonna bump it up to terrible though, strictly due to lore. And visually, it's good, right? However, it feels like an Elden Ring boss. But the problem is, I think from a mechanic standpoint, this boss is one of the worst bosses in the entire game. From a mechanic standpoint, like ridiculously frustrating. Absolutely ridiculously frustrating. So he is going in terrible. I would put him in garbage if it wasn't for lore and visuals. Old Demon King. Interesting boss. I just don't think this is... I don't think this is as well executed. Arena and lore is kind of carrying this boss, so I'm going to put him at top of bad. I don't think it's a great boss fight. It's a disappointment, honestly. Ancient Wyvern. I'm not gonna put him in garbage. It's just stupidly easy. So I'm putting him in the bottom of bad. It's just stupidly easy. But it's not egregious. It's not egregiously bad or anything like that. Now, Nameless King. Nameless King, really solid arena, really solid lore. That being said, I don't like him normally. I have attempted it many times with him, but I'm just not necessarily a huge fan of this boss. I'm gonna put him in meh. He's gonna be a hot take, but I have cheesed him multiple times. But the area is also really, really annoying to get to. It's really quite a process to get to him. I just am not that big of a fan of the Nameless King, but he has lore. Music is also I'm not necessarily a massive fan of either, so he's going in meh. Soul of Cinder, really good boss fight. Good boss fight. Putting him in top of good. He does have the music. Oh, the arena is also so beautiful. I'll put him at amazing. Amazing boss fight. What a way to end the game. The culmination of basically every build that you probably use in Dark Souls 1 is there. Absolutely fantastic boss. I'm not going to put him above Pond of Sullivan because Pond of Sullivan, in my opinion, is the best for NPC summons, especially Dark Souls 3. And Yorm just is such a masterpiece and culmination of an NPC quest line that it's just absolute peak. So I think these are all spots that are amazing. It's just Masterpiece. I just can't say much wrong with Masterpiece. Now, Sister Freed and Father Ariandel. A little bit of a hot take, but I don't think it's deserving of anything above Dancer Boreal Valley. Its music is pretty solid. The problem is the invisibility. The invisibility, and without Slave Knight Gale, this fight would be absolutely abysmal. Especially separating the two of them. I do like the lore. The music is just not necessarily as potent. But having a third phase is really solid. Some really good ideas here. I think this is just a good boss. Not absolutely amazing or a masterpiece, but I think it's a really good boss. I'm just saying my critiques are that invisibility is a pain in the ass, and I really did not feel like... I felt like I had to get lucky. I really did feel like I had to get lucky with Sister Freed. Now, Grave Tender, I think this is a genuinely really terrible boss. I think this is an actual terrible boss. I will say Crystal Sage is better. I will genuinely say Crystal Sage is better. It does have arena going for it, but it also doesn't have lore, so I am putting Lothric in lore above. I think it's just a terrible boss fight. Demon Prince, I think it's pretty good too. I think it's pretty good. I do love the design that is Imp, but I am gonna put it at bottom of good. I think it's a pretty good boss. Pretty good boss. Half-Life Spirit of the Church, garbage. I hate it more than Deacons of the Deep. It is a garbage boss fight. It is an NPC or player fight, but I'm gonna consider it as an NPC fight. The fact that the little guy with the white robes respawns is garbage. Garbage. I actually hate this fight. I really do hate Half-Life 3 of the Church, and it has such an absurdly expensive moveset. And also, why the fuck does the Adjudicator not really do anything much? Like, what the fuck? I would rather the Adjudicator have, like, kind of be like a combo deal similar to Ornstein and Smo. But, like, holy shit, I hate Half-Life Spirit of the Church. On the flip side, Slave Knight Gale is an absolute masterpiece. Absolute masterpiece. Now, he's definitely better than the Best Watchers. I do enjoy him better than the Best Watchers. But I am going to put him right below Sif. I am going to put him below Sif. Strictly due to the fact that Sif has a lot of tie-ins with base game and DLC. And there's a whole ass cutscene change. Gale is really good. An absolute masterpiece. Again, what's separating these bosses is going to be really minute details. And that one minute detail that's separating these two is Gale's first phase is not that enjoyable. His fight ramps up, but it doesn't get truly good until second and third phase. And I do know people like to say BS lightning, but the lightning is telegraphed on the ground where it's going to strike. and lightning helped me out in my completion. So I'll gladly take it. So, because ironically enough, when the lightning hits you, you have a fall. I had fell down, and Gale was doing a big attack, and I framed through it because I was down. It was absolutely amazing. But that's what's separating them. And Abyss, I do believe it's better than Abyss Washers. But Abyss Washers is absolutely a masterpiece as well. Now the last boss, Midir, has the arena, does not have the music, does have some visual spectacle. I think it's a good fight, but does not deserve the amount of, I don't believe deserves the amount of credit he gets. I'm putting him below Sister Fried. I do believe Sister Fried is better. But Midir is pretty good, but I just did not, I don't like how much damage he outputs, and I don't like considering the health. He fits way too close to an Elden Ring boss fight, and I hate a lot of the Elden Ring boss fights for that reason. High damage, well, usually it's high damage, high health. And I hate that about Elden Ring. A lot of bosses have a lot of health. And do a crap ton of damage. It's like, what the fuck? And some bosses are glass cannons. High damage and really low health. And I hate those bosses too. I'm going to keep Dancer Bora Valley up here, but I am going to move High Lord Walnir down. And I am going to move Champion Gundyr down too. I think this is solid. That is it for Dark Souls 3 though. Let me know if y'all massively disagree with anything. I feel like my personal hottest takes might be Lothric and Lorien, because I feel like some people might really enjoy that fight. I feel like that could be a hot take. I feel like Nameless King could be an issue of contention, and I definitely feel like somebody's going to point out, why the fuck do you have Wolnir up there? But now we're going to move on. Oh, but should I say the best game? No, we're going to move on to Bloodborne. Bloodborne is personally my favorite Soulsborne game. That being said, is it going to escape a lot of my criticisms? Absolutely not. There are some bosses that I'm absolutely going to rip into, and I think Bloodborne struggles massively in mid-game. However, am I going to praise the best bosses? Oh, you absolutely. And I do like how we're getting increasing representation in Masterpiece. We're also getting increasing representation in Garbage. So far, Dark Souls 1 is leading and not having that many garbage bosses, but also not having that many masterpiece bosses either. And Dark Souls 3 is kind of 2 and 2. Demon Souls, not a single masterpiece boss, and only one amazing boss. But that tells you a lot about Demon Souls in my opinion. Now, Cleric Beast. Fantastic. I'm going to put him in amazing. Again, do keep in mind these bosses are organized by games for amazing and lower, not within their own tier. This is also unless amazing is not that cluttered, then I might go through and do that, but no. But Cleric Beast, one of the best tutorial bosses in all of Soulsborne. Really solid boss. Music is absolutely phenomenal. Moveset is pretty solid to teach the player about beast bosses. The only thing really keeping it from Masterpiece is the fact that beast bosses basically stop happening after the other game. They basically just cease to exist. I feel like I feel like if there had been more beast bosses later on, then I feel like this would be great. Gascoigne, another amazing boss. I'm putting him slightly below Cleric Beast because Gascoigne is ridiculously difficult for how early he is. It's the same problem that I have with a boss that's later on, but I feel like this boss is a little bit misplaced. Considering how you don't fight any hunter-like enemies, or like you don't fight hunter-like bosses until way later either. So in my opinion, it doesn't make much sense for Gascoigne to be this early. From a gameplay perspective. From a story perspective, though, he has a lot of tie-ins and everything. To this day, have not been able to beat this boss without cheesing him. Now, usually I just kind of around the tombstones and then get his beast form, kind of caught between a tree and a tombstone, but I've recently learned the stair cheese, and that's absolutely amazing. He does have a mid boss transformation, and he does have a fantastic music, so that's why he's in amazing. Blood-Starved Beast. Considering how aggressive he is, I don't like that he has Frenzy. I'm going to put him in bad. He's one of those bosses where you're either going to absolutely smoke him, or you're going to have a hard time with him. The problem is, he is pseudo-required. I don't like how people say he's not like. I don't like the term optional because some bosses in Soulsborne games do lack some pretty important parts. Like, you actually cannot access Upper Cathedral. Well, you can't access a lot of Cathedral Ward and a lot of areas unless you've beaten Bloodstarved Beast or Vicar Amelia first. And it's just, this boss is not particularly great in my opinion. Which is of Emma garbage. Garbage. Garbage boss. The big attack basically one-shotting you. I don't like there's another enemy in there. Go in with 0 insight. This boss not worth doing. The music is trash too. The area is not particularly great either in terms of the boss arena. What it locks to is super important. The Blood Workshop is so... The tool is so extremely helpful. It's just... Why this boss? And again, to keep in mind, Bloodborne's not going to escape my criticism. No, there's some garbage-ass bosses, and there's one here. I do think Bloodborne's going to have a lot of bosses in up here, but also right here, too. Vicar Amelia. Really good cutscene. I'm going to put her in good. Really good cutscene. Pretty similar moveset. She's basically a more advanced version of Cleric Beast, in my opinion. My biggest issues are visually speaking. A lot of the feathers and stuff can kind of just... Some of them can wig out sometimes, but also there's just a lot of fur on screen, so it's kind of hard to tell what she's doing sometimes. And she can heal, but the game does give you an item that stops you from stops your healing, the numbing mist. So there's that. Now on to the next boss, Shadows of Yharnam. Really bad boss solo, in my opinion. This is a really toxic boss solo. But this is another good boss fight with NPC summons. Really solid boss. The music's pretty solid too. I'm gonna put him in meh. Put him in meh. Not egregious, you're really in no way, shape, or form. So there's that. Rom is a pretty terrible boss fight. I'm putting Rom in terrible. It's just a big rock, and I don't like the spider enemies. There's just so many of them, and you have to do that shit 3 times. It's so annoying. This boss I don't necessarily look forward to. I don't hate it necessarily, but come on. And by the way, I have Bloodborne Platinum. And yes, I do know that fucking arena 2 with Ramen is way too fucking small. But it does have area. It doesn't like a cutscene too. So it does have some lore, pretty good lore. So I am gonna put in bad. I'm gonna put it below Bloodstarved Beast though. Just because Bloodstarved Beast is more of a toss-up. Okay. Dark Beast Parl. I think this boss is amazing. I love Dark Beast Parl. Dark Beast Parl is among the few bosses that I actually legitimately look forward to fighting. That being said, I always handle him after Rom, but like, I just love since I use Level Blade, just whacking him in the head, shocking the electricity out of him, getting the visceral, love looking at his little skeleton. I love this boss. I love goofy bosses like that sometimes, and it's not like this, he probably could go from 0 to 100 really quickly. And it does unlock an optional side path too. I like this. I think this boss is amazing. I love this boss. I really did look forward to him. And his boss music, if I remember correctly, is sort of Egyptian theme. It's very different than anything else in Bloodborne, so at least it reminds you of Egyptian. Now, from hero to 0, One Reborn. This boss fight's terrible too. This boss fight's actually terrible. Some of the attacks do absurd amounts of damage. The music's not great either, and because of how big the boss is, sometimes it's really difficult to tell what's going to come out. And he also has 2 ends, so it's kind of hard to tell. It's like, should I hit this side? Should I hit this side? Yeah. So yeah, it's going to get terrible. I hate going to this boss. Amygdala, way too easy. At least, it's way too big. It's way too big. It should have been a little bit smaller. I'm gonna put it in meh, below Shadows of Yharnam, but it's cool to get to fight an Amygdala. I'm not considering the Chalice Dungeon version, Because I believe, yeah, none of the Chalice Dungeon bosses are in here, so I'm not going to consider them the Chalice Dungeon version. Otherwise, it would go straight to terrible. But it's a pretty mad boss fight. It does have some really cool ideas. It's just the boss is way too big considering the camera. Martyr Ligarius. Mm. We also have a surprise. I didn't think that many bosses would be in meh and bad. I thought they would mostly be in terrible garbage or good and above. Martyr Ligarius. I think this boss is just weird. You either have a really easy time with him or a rough time with him, depending on what he decides to do and how good you are at parrying. I think he's a good boss, though. I'm gonna put him below Vicar Amelia, though. Yeah, I'm gonna put him right below Vicar Amelia. I do enjoy this. I think this fight is a pretty good fight. This music is pretty solid. Fighting on a rooftop, but the problem is that rooftop can be to your detriment. I don't know, pretty good boss though. Y'all know exactly where he's going. He's one of my most hated bosses in all of From Software. And all of Soulsborne, Mikalash is one of my most hated bosses. Fuck this dude. I hate it when he's in the fucking cage because he can use Call to Beyond to basically insta-shoot you. And the running around is fucking annoying. I hate Mikalash. That's all I gotta say. Living Failures. I think this is actually a good boss fight. I think it's above Vicar Amelia. I think Living Failures, especially if you're playing it solo, is a damage check. Is a damage check. Can you down the other guys fast enough? And the music is absolutely phenomenal. One of the best pieces of music in Old Hunters DLC. Absolutely phenomenal. The Sunflower's really good there. I love the arena too. The only thing holding it back is the fact that there's multiple of them, and the fight can get really bad really quickly. That's the only reason why. And I felt like they could have done a little bit more visually speaking with the Living Failures. I feel like if the Living Failures had the Celestial Emissaries model, it would be the perfect boss fight. Speaking of Celestial Emissary, we're going to do that first. Before Abradus. I don't know. This is organized kind of weirdly. The Celestial Emissary is going in meh. I love this boss more than Shadows of Yharnam. From a strict gameplay perspective, this thing would be garbage. But I love the jiggle. I love the little head physics though. I love the head physics on this boss when you hit it. I just love it. It's mostly getting carried by the small versions, but I love it. So it's going in meh. Now, Queen Yharnam is here, which is interesting, because Queen Yharnam is the only Child Session boss. I'm assuming Queen Yharnam is here because of trophy reasons. Abrade is pretty solid, pretty wacky design, especially for a great one. Having the eyes like that is pretty cool. I'm just not necessarily a huge fan of this boss. I'm putting Abradus above Amygdala, but below Shadows of Yharnam. Murgo's Wet Nurse. Solid arena. Boss does a fuck ton of damage. And I hate the teleporting sequence when the sky goes purple. But I'm going to put it in meh above Celestial Emissary, though. Queen Yharnam. I barely remember this fight, but I just remember hating this fight. I remember genuinely hating this fight. So it's going in garbage. Type of garbage. I remember absolutely despising this fight. Ooh. How do I want to tackle these remaining six? I'm gonna go in order. I'm gonna do Moon Presence first, and then go in order of what I usually beat them in. Moon Presence is pretty bad. Moon Presence is bad. I'm putting him above Rom, below Bloodstone Beast. In my opinion, the Moon Presence should have been fused with the Garmin fight. If Moon Presence was fused with the Garmin fight, which honestly was probably originally intended, based on health and its gameplay, I think it would be one of the best bosses. Because it would be like, hey, you can't use all your resources on Garmin, Because, hey, you gotta save some for me, but also not hardcore punishing players that might have struggled a little bit more with Gammon. But I think that it's just, on its own, it's just not good. It's bad, it's pretty bad. However, it's not egregiously terrible. Now, I'll just do Gammon. Gammon is an absolute masterpiece. Absolute masterpiece. And a while back, Torchic and I, we did, a little couples thing together. We were kind of like doing a little bracket of Bloodborne music, because we do stuff like that sometimes. Just, in our free time. And we were doing, like, Bloodborne music, and we were surprised by how impactful Gammon's music actually is. How, like, Gammon, in my opinion, is a boss perfected. Absolute perfection as a boss. I legitimately do not know if a boss can top Gammon. Absolutely phenomenal. And, Sif has the cutscenes, right? It has the cutscenes and everything. It has the music, but Gammon has an entire game's worth of build-up. Gammon is literally there the second you get to Hunter's Dream, and there with you every step of the way until the very, very end. The arena is also so beautiful. Another reason why I really want Bloodborne to get a full remake, keeping the music, but like a whole entire visual upgrade. Because man, just imagine Gammon's boss fight and the moon and everything in the background too, and the iconic tonight. Gammon joins the hunt. Just so good. Moveset is really solid too. Just a fight between hunters is just, it's absolute peak. I really, really do look forward to fighting Gammon every single time I've played Bloodborne. And especially on first impressions, holy shit, I was just absolutely blown away. This Gammon is so good. Just absolutely like that good. And Ludwig is absolutely amazing too. This is going in Masterpiece as well. I'm putting him below Gale. Actually, no, I'm putting him just a little bit above Gale. Just a little bit above Gale. Ludwig also an absolutely fantastic boss fight. I do wish the second fight was a little bit. I haven't yet to fight Ludwig completely solo, but I do plan on doing it at some point. Just the music is absolutely phenomenal. The amount of detail in this boss, and again, just that build up from the base game, just absolutely phenomenal. I can't express how much I love Ludwig too. And actually, Torchic and I, we described kind of our relationship to, like, I'm Ludwig and she's, my Holy Moonlight Sword. So, this boss fight is pretty important to me and Torchic's relationship too. So, and then on to Lady Maria. Lady Maria is going below Gale. Another really good boss. The music is really solid too. The intro is really solid too. The fight ramps up like Gale. Gale has a lot more build-up than Lady Maria does, in my opinion. The only things holding Lady Maria back from the rest of these, and again, these are nitpicks, by the way. These are really nitpicks. It's above Abyss Watchers because Abyss Watchers, it's just that second phase. It's just a little. And Lady Maria, it's dodging consistently to one side, essentially trivializes a lot of her stuff. And that's it. Like that is like the separating things between them. Like these bosses are just, they are masterpieces for a reason. Orphan of Cause, really, really good fight. Really good fight. I do think it belongs in Amazing. I'm putting him below Gascoigne and Cleric Beast though. Because Orphan of Cause is lacking in the music department, in my opinion. He's lacking in the music department, but has everything else. Lawrence the First Vicar is complicated. In my opinion, did not necessarily change after a second time fighting him either. He outputs way too much fucking damage. His moveset is way too, like, what the fuck? I don't think he is actually as good as Cleric Beast. I genuinely don't. I think he is going to go right below Living Failures, but above Vicar mainly because music, 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 music. And both Vicar Amelia and Lawrence is their arena takes place basically in the same spot, and Lawrence has massive amounts of lore, and it does make sense that he would end up like this. And it is technically kind of a secret-ish boss fight. You have to have a certain item, and then he'll activate, basically. And you can see his boss model there without fighting him. Just the music is so phenomenal, too. But Living Failures does have a little bit more spectacle than Lawrence does, which is I wish Lawrence did have that. And that is it for Bloodborne. As you can see, obviously, a lot of the bosses are up here. But again, we do have some bosses down in garbage. Bloodborne does make up the most out of any game for Masterpiece and Amazing, but it does make up the most in terms of garbage. So, and it makes up a decent chunk of bad, too. So, again, like, Old Hunters DLC, like, is so good. In my opinion, is the best From Software DLC that we still have gotten to this day. Shadow of the Erdtree does not come anywhere close. But let me know what your hot takes are for Bloodborne. This is the one that I thought would be a hot take. Probably Celestial Emissary being this high. Living Failures being this high might be a hot take. Darkbeast Spiral is probably up here too. I am curious what y'all think of Queen of Yharnam, the Thumerian Queen, because I remember hating this boss, but I don't know. Now on to the last game, Elden Ring. Now to put some perspective on this, I do believe Elden Ring is the second worst from Software. I think it's the second worst Soulsborne game that I've played. However, the gap between, I think Demon Souls is the worst, but the gap between Demon Souls and Elden Ring is ridiculously high. In my opinion, it goes Bloodborne, then Dark Souls 3, then Dark Souls 1, then Elden Ring. I think Dark Souls 3 lacks replayability, so I do think you could swap Dark Souls 3 and Dark Souls 1. And you could put, if you're talking about replayability, I think it's Bloodborne number 1, then Dark Souls 1, then Elden Ring, then Dark Souls 3, then Demon Souls, obviously. But in actual, how good I think the game is, it goes Bloodborne number 1. Obviously, it's a Bloodborne stand. Bloodborne, then DS3, DS1, Elden Ring, then Demon Souls, way bottom. Very, very bottom. And we're going to get into this. Godric the Grafted. Meh. This is going to meh. Just meh. 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 Renala, really cool arena. Being able to, her summoning, spirit summoning is cool, but I don't think works quite well. And she has arena carrying her boss fight. I'm going to put her in meh. The first phase is also a little bit annoying. I'm not going to lie. Radon, I'm not a huge fan of. But considering the style that he's in, I'm actually going to put him in good. He has really solid music, pretty cool arena, does unlock a whole entire another area, and it's tied to a quest. I just think he's a little bit difficult considering where he's at. Astro the Natural Born, I don't like this fight. I think this is an actual terrible boss fight. I think he's actually a terrible boss fight if you can't stance break him. I actually legitimately don't like this fight. Regal Ancestor Spirit, really cool detail. I really just think he's too weak. I think genuinely he's too weak. He has so much detail, so I'm putting him at top of meh. He'd be such an amazing boss fight if he had a little bit more health, because like considering where you're at. Rykard, really good relic boss fight too. I'm not gonna put him at amazing strictly due to music, but I'm actually gonna put him above Radon though. I really do enjoy Rykard as a boss fight. Oh, I will say Elden Ring does have one major thing going for it, and that's dragon boss fights. Holy shit, Elden Ring has some of the best dragon boss fights in all of Soulsborne. Vorticex, ooh. I think it belongs in Amazing. My only qualm is the way to access it is a pain in the ass. But Vorticex is real. Margit might be a hot take, but I'm putting him in bad. I'm putting him in bad because he's placed terribly. He's so difficult for where he's at. I think if he was I think if Godric the Grafted and Margot were swapped, I think I'd agree with it a little bit more. But considering where the game kind of leads you to, Margot is really, really bad boss for where he's at. Fire Giant. It's a lot of spectacle, too much damage. I'm putting him in meh, below Renala, because I preferred Renala over Fire Giant. Malekith, I'm not a huge fan of the second phase in terms of verticality. He's going in good, but below the rest of these bosses. Strictly, strictly due to how much verticality he has in his second phase, and it can make it difficult to kind of keep sight of him. And I don't like that he reduces like your health pretty rapidly. Not a huge fan of that. Second phase is the roughest part. Placiduce. Really good boss. Is it a masterpiece? Yes. Placiduce, first Elden Ring masterpiece. Bottom of a masterpiece, though. I don't think he is better than any of these bosses, but I do think there's not that much wrong with him. I will say I wish there was a little bit more spectacle-wise going on between first and second phase, but that's just, again, a nitpick. Now, Moog, Lord of Blood. Not that big of a fan of this boss. It's going in meh. I prefer Wriggly Ancestor Spirit. A lot of Elden Ring bosses are just meh. Millennia's might be a controversial thing, but I'm actually going to put this boss in bad. If it wasn't for Waterfowl and Scarlet Rot did not deal as much fucking damage as it does, this bot Melania would definitely shoot up to good. But the issue is Waterfowl is the prime issue, and it feels like she's in the wrong fucking game. It feels like she is in the wrong game. So I feel like Melania is going to be a really contentious topic too. Horulu Godfrey. I think this is an amazing boss. I think this is a good boss. Not necessarily amazing. I think this is the best out of the good bosses because I play fighting games. Yeah, strictly due to the fact that I play fighting games. The thing that's holding it back from amazing for me is I do think it has bullshit attacks. I think it has a decent amount of bullshit attacks, and that is why it is going in good. I personally don't like how it fused Radagon and Elden Beast. Due to the fact that I think Elden Beast is really bad. Oh wait, you can summon Torrent in there now, right? I haven't fought Elden Beast since, but if Torrent is indeed summonable, I'm gonna put this in good. Above Malekith, though. I think that's a good spot for it. Are we already into... We're already into DLC fights. Okay. We're already in here. Okay, now. Almost all of these bosses are DLC. Except... Well, actually, never mind. Hold on a second. No, okay. Only, like, 3 of these bosses are DLC. So... So can Elden Ring represent the DLC quite well? Well... Let's see. Divine Beast Dancing Lion. Amazing boss. Gonna move up forward to Sax. Really solid ideas. The only thing lacking a little bit is music is quite confusing and kind of grates my personal ears to kind of listen to for an extended period of time. No really issue with Divine Beast. Rolana is cool. Too aggressive. She's going on top of good. Oh, she was a Godfrey the Golden version of Godfrey. Okay, if I were to put Godfrey the Golden version, it would be amazing. Just so y'all know, for my sanity. Commander Gaius. I don't like this fight. I think it's pretty bad. Above Astral Natural Point though. Putrescent Knight, garbage. Scattertree Avatar, terrible. Too much health for my issue with Scattertree Avatar is too much health for third phase. Considering how much damage it does. Madra, disappointing, but I'm going to put it in bad. Millennia and Margot are both better. So now you might be saying, Hot Sauce Man, the DLC is not looking too good right now. And I do want to point out that Bloodborne did not have a single DLC boss fight below good. So, other than ain't looking too good. But, you know, matter of mother of fingers. Really good ideas. My only issue is the second phase is massively disappointing. So, it is going in meh. Top of meh. Mesmer, the biggest disappointment in the entire DLC. He's going in good, but he's going in meh, top of meh. Meta or Mother Fingers are going to move her up to good above Malakath. Mesmer's second phase is terrible. It does not fit in Elden Ring. It feels so out of place, it's absurd. And I don't like some of the fire attacks too, that felt a little bit bullshit when I was playing the game. That felt a little bit weird to iframe through. Mesmer's second phase is the biggest disappointment though. And the arena is not impressive either. So that's why it's going in meh. Ramana is going up there. Really great boss. Absolutely fantastic. I think it's going in amazing. My only criticism is the butterfly wings should have stayed in second phase. Ramana also does have fantastic music too. That's going to get amazing. Promise Consort Radon Mekhala is going. I do know it's gotten some changes, so it's going in bad. But considering that it is the final boss, I am putting it in terrible. I'm putting it in terrible. You cannot, as a final boss of a Soulsborne DLC, you cannot, under no circumstances, be a terrible boss. You are not allowed. Sister Freed, pretty good boss. Save Nightingale, masterpiece. I will say Manus, it's another terrible boss or a terrible DLC, but it was its first DLC, so I could cut him some slack. And you know, Orphan of Cause is an amazing, and he's the final boss of that DLC. You cannot drop the ball as a DLC, as a final DLC boss. And this boss does. Why the I understand lore-wise, but realistically, I do not want to fight fucking Radon for another time. It's another time a boss has been fucking reused. And I hate that. As also, Moog, Lord of Blood, is reused in underneath Capital City of Ash. He's there. And it makes no fucking sense. It makes no sense. There is a gameplay reason, I believe, why. Or like, there's not a behind the scenes reason why. But holy shit. That being said, Moog does have a lot going for him, so that's why he's in meh. But holy shit. Radon's first phase, pretty solid. Moveset is barely different. Moveset is barely fucking different. And the second phase, I know it's been patched and shit, but also, like, go look up an image of pre-patch hitboxes. That's the shit that I was dealing with. That was the shit we had to deal with in Seamless Co-op 2. The hitboxes were massive. And on the back thing, again, we've already done this with the Lothric Princes. We've already done this. And it did not work there. It doesn't work here. I legitimately hate this boss. I'm not putting it in garbage, but it's terrible. On the flip side, Bale is a masterpiece. Bale is an absolute masterpiece. I'm putting him right there, right next to Gale. Actually, I'll put him above Gale, not above Ludwig. Gale does have music. Bale has one of the best pieces of music. He does have an NPC tied to him. And I just love Igor screaming, Bale! Just also the spectacle in the second phase, just absolutely phenomenal. One of the highlights of the DLC, I will say the lead up to him is a little bit rough. What puts him above the edge above the Gale is due to the entirety of the fight is fun. With Gale, the first fight is a little bit so it's a little bit but yeah, the reason why it's not going above Ludwig is Ludwig has way more build up. That's it. That's the only reason why it's not up there. And again, Sif is above Ludwig because of how much is tied into Sif. Now, we do have a little amount of boss. I'm not going to organize these by worst to worst, I just hate Putrescent Knight. I hate Putrescent Knight. It goes under the ground so fucking often, and I hate the horse. And you can't summon Torrent for that fight either, and it makes no sense. If the enemy has a horse, and if an enemy can move, if a boss can move extremely large distances quickly, I should be able to do that too. But here it is. This is the entire. This is the From Software tier list. Let me go ahead and minimize for y'all so y'all can see the whole thing. And no, I don't know how to use my F buttons to do it with. So there is the entire ranking. Again, I've never played Dark Souls 2, and I haven't really completed Sekiro, so I can't speak to those bosses. And in Dark Souls 1, I have not fought Dark Souls Gwendolyn, and well, by the way, I've never even attempted them. And Calamite never even attempted her either. Dark Unimadir I beat recently, but I had attempted him before. So he was technically the only boss that I have attempted and not beaten. What do y'all think? What do y'all think? I do believe that I think none of these are really. I don't think any of these are like absolutely out of this realm hot takes. Besides, I do think Melania and Consort Mikkel and Consort Radon people are gonna have a lot of problems with. But honestly, by the way, these are organized by game. I could go in and organize through each list, but I feel like that's kind of a lot even for me to do, considering that a decent chunk of these bosses I've only fought once. So I do like this list. I don't think I want to move anyone around, even in their own little thing. I will say I am going to move some bosses down, I believe. I am going to move some bosses down. I'm going to move True King Allant and Dragon God down to Terrible. I don't think I'm moving any of the rest of these bosses. I'm moving Centipede down and Demon down to Terrible. Went to Garbage. I'm moving Fool's Idol down to Terrible too. I think that's all I'm going to move. Now for these, I am going to move some of these around. So I am going to move Old King Allant down to Good. I am going to move Ornstein and Smo down to Good as well. Where's Ornstein and Smo? Where's Dark Souls? I'm putting them above Artorias. I think that's. I am going to move Sanctuary Garden. No, I'm going to keep Sanctuary Garden there. I think this is good. I think this is good. I think it's pretty solid. Generally speaking, a lot of From Software bosses are good, amazing masterpieces, but like, based on what you can tell here, Bloodborne, generally speaking, has bosses above meh. Some of these, though, are kind of my personal takes. Elden Ring does have a decent chunk of not great bosses. Like, generally speaking, in Elden Ring, a lot of bosses are either meh and worse, or pretty damn good and higher. So on that note, as I wrap up this video here, let me know a couple of things. Remember those questions I proposed at the beginning. Number 1, Code Vein will be the next game covered. Do y'all want to see just me by myself? Do y'all want to see me and Torchic, me and Breakfast, or me and Torchic and Breakfast, or do y'all want to see someone entirely new? Let me know in the comments. Also, what is my 3 hottest takes on this tier list? The 3 things that are like, yo, there's no way you fucking put it up here. And will I change it? You know, with whatever y'all's reasoning y'all give? Probably not. But, you know, I'll give some hearts to, you know, comments where it's like, okay, I can understand. Or, you know, it's like, okay, I don't mind this. This is an alternative take, you know. Because I do know how I have some top takes. Like, nobody's going to understand why I fucking put Wolnir here. But the same reason why I have Wolnir is the same reason why I have Dark Beast Parl up here. And similar situation for Celestial Emissary. On that note, thanks for tuning in. Expect the next video to be a Destiny 2 Titan build. And do expect a Sparking Zero review. It's probably not going to be as positive as some people might believe. And it's also not going to be necessarily as bad as some people may or may not believe. But on that note, thanks for tuning in. And I will catch y'all on the flip side.